Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. I'm Danielle, here with Shane-O, sitting in for Tom today. We are just waiting on our guest, Kymone Freeman. So in the meantime, I say we'll jump to a few more of your calls. I wanted to check in with Richard in Hollywood, Florida, my hometown, actually, listening on Sirius Radio. Richard, thanks for listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I tell you, I'm an angry black man, and let me tell you why. Because there's not enough shows or there's not enough exposure for black people in the black community of shows like this. It's amazing, and I live in the black community, and when it comes to conservatives, most blacks believe that conservatives are racist in the black community. Not all, but most. And the reason they believe that because of some of the things that they see on television, whether it's Fox News or some of that other stuff that we see on television. I'm an advocate, and it may sound funny, but I'm an advocate to people, especially black people, to know that every white person is not the same. But I must tell you, conservatives really give white people a bad name.
I know we're painting with a broad brush with comments like that, Richard, but it just came out this week that the Republican Party is 95% white. 95%. That is astonishing, and it makes it kind of easy to understand why we get to broad brush conclusions like the ones you're mentioning.
I mean, I had a black young man, a friend of mine. He was talking to me, and he watched Fox News. He watched a lot of different shows. He watched Fox News, and he told me, he said, it seems as if that conservatives actually believe that black people are just almost ignorant. Some of the things that you see on Fox News and some of the things that they say, but they continue to say it's not racist to say some of the things that they say. But in the black community, they looking at it and saying, so I guess what I'm saying is, I love Thom Hartmann. I love this show, and I'm always telling my friends to please listen, because we need to hear this. We need to hear that we're not in this all by ourselves. And so I just wanted to tell you guys, I really commend you and just love what you're doing. I can't wait to hear the author coming up for that book.
Yeah, it's actually a show, Richard, and he's here. He's in studio. He'll be with us in just a second, Kymone Freeman. But, sometimes it takes somebody being willing to talk about those terms that somebody has made into a bad word. That what's wrong with being angry in the situation that we find ourselves where you just had the Urban League report I was telling you about, where, black Americans dealing with 72% of the equality of a white American. Why wouldn't somebody be angry about that? Why not? And we have the one, the only, let's see if we're ready here, live radio and TV, Kymone Freeman, award-winning activist, playwright, co-owner of We Act Radio, guerrilla artist on Twitter, part of the recent delegation to Cuba.
Yeah, man.
And the star of his one-man show, Admit Whites Only. I love the description of this show so much. I read it to Shane and said, we have to go and see it. What happens when a millennial black man, activist, artist, father, radio producer talks to and about white folks unfiltered on stage? Kymone, tell us about it.
Peace and blessings. Thank you for having me. We love it. We love it.
Absolutely.
Basically, coming off the heels of the Black Lives Matter movement, and since that, obviously, forensic pathologist expert testimony, videotape murder, community of witnesses, a black attorney general, a black president can't get one indictment for police murders. We were looking for a way to escalate the Black Lives Matter movement, and I felt that one of the arenas that this need to be fought in is in the realm of art and culture. And so this is a manifestation of that. A lot of times, most white people are not racist themselves because they don't know how to identify it. So when they hear someone say white supremacy, they say, well, I'm not a white supremacist. I'm not a skinhead.
They think KKK extreme examples.
And that's an extreme example. What we're talking about is more 21st century manifestations. So when you see a Latino movie with a Latino cast, a Latino director, That's for Latino audiences. When you see an Asian cast with an Asian director, that's an Asian film for Asian audiences. But if you see an all-white movie, all white producers, all white directors, all white writers, white everything, that is just a film for everybody.
Excellent
That's white
point.
supremacy, and that's what we're talking about. And that is the lens that we sometimes see the world. And we need to start to address that.
For the last half hour or so, one of the points I've mentioned on, and this is just a personal issue for me, that our society has turned this phrase, angry black man, into a pejorative, into some type of insult. And I find, I have a problem with that it's okay to be angry. I don't care who you are in today's society. If you're happy with the status quo, then, you might need to explain things to me because I'm missing it. And I think that phrase is powerful. It's a good thing. And that's how we start to change.
Absolutely. And let me just say this. I hate that it's necessary for me to say this, but white supremacy dictates that. If you feel some kind of way when someone says Black Lives Matter, yes, of course, all lives matter. But unfortunately, we're in a system where they allocate funds to the greatest military-industrial complex in the world, and yet people are dying in their cars or bridges collapsing. So in that regard, they don't think all lives matter.
Right.
And apparently the police and the media and the courts and this judicial system and the criminal justice system doesn't think that all lives matter. So we are focusing on the ones that are being lost. Mm-hmm. And I just want to shout out our sister, Dr. Stacey Patton. I don't have a quote in front of me, but she has written a very insightful, I think the most concise examination of white supremacy in an article entitled "Loving Whites Won't Fix Racism."
I believe I read it. It was cross-posted at Alternate. If anybody wants to check it out, it's over there.
That's it. And we people owe it to ourselves to begin to examine this type of information. That's Dr. Stacey Patton. Also, Tim Wise is a wonderful white brother who's dedicated his life to addressing and dismantling on white supremacy. Because in the cornerstone, that is fundamentally the problem of the world, because there's a color caste system in every society, in every part of the globe. And that's a manifestation of that. So white supremacy is practiced primarily by people who are not themselves white.
I want to touch on your show, which people could still check out. It's March 26th at Busboys and Poets at 14th and V, and April 4th in Hyattsville, where I believe Shane and I will be
That's
attending.
Be the big one.
Yeah, we are
Howard Zinn
so
room.
excited.
I'm
so
trying
excited.
to challenge the people speak in that production, and Howard Zinn was had a big impact on my life.
I know how involved you are in so many different ways. And I know all of the stuff that you post, that you're constantly working on. How did you find time to create this show, put it together, get it on stage? Well,
Angry Black Man Therapy, and the therapy is a lot of red wine. A lot of Jesus juice went into following the ancestors in this. And basically, it is also therapeutic to get things off your chest, if you will. Rather than screaming at your television, incoherently screaming across the radio airways, I wanted to have a conversation that I think that has yet to have been had, and we just need to, look at it. And I tell some vivid stories. This is not all meat and potatoes. There's a lot of, humor in this, because we need to laugh at ourselves sometimes. I think we laugh to keep from crying. And I try to, embody all of that. And I tell some stories of how I've seen racism and experienced white supremacy in my life, manifested by other people, other than white people, of course. And it's just, the only thing I regret in doing this is that when I entitled it Whites Only, because that's my goal, to speak to an all-white audience, I didn't realize just how difficult it would be of attracting a white audience. And so a lot of my black friends was like, well, no one's white is going to come. And I said, well, why don't you just bring one of your white friends? And they're like, I don't have any. And I was like, now how are you going to talk about white people? How do you know anything? You know what I'm saying? You don't even know any white people, And, so it's, so I'm a little disappointed doing this production with an all-black audience with a few white people sprinkled here that's brave enough to come out. But I just want you to know that I'm not beating up on white people. We're beating up on the institutional white supremacy. So it's not like I'm calling someone out. In fact, a white guy saved my life. So there's if anything, is someone who, you ever see the movie with Ed Norton, American History X?
Yes.
I think that's a concise examination of how you make someone into a racist. and then just start to dismantle that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm tapping into, because not that black people can possibly be racist people. Racist means that I am somehow affecting your forward movement and upper mobility in life because of my prejudices.
Yeah.
So unless I'm doing that, I am not a racist. But with having said that, I at one time was the typical I hate white people person until I had a few experiences that made me, come in grips with that. And so we confuse with hating a white supremacist institutional system with the people that we see walking down the street. And as Lyndon B. Johnson would have said, if you give the lowest white man something to look down on, if you make him feel as if he's better than the best black man, he won't notice that you picking his pocket. If you give him something to look down on, hell, he was empty his pockets for you. And that is how we get a lot, 99% white folks to vote against their own self-interest in the hopes of identifying with the 1%.
Yeah, creating the other. We have a quick 4-minute free speech TV break if you want to do some special extra commentary for our free speech TV audience.
Free speech.
1 second. Let's run to a quick break. Kymone Freeman, check it out. Admit whites only.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Find out all the information and RSVP for your show. I'm talking to you, white people, at popularresistance.org. Welcome back. I'm still here with Kymone Freeman, the star of the one-man show, A Black Man in Therapy, Whites Only, challenging white people to come out and see it again, March 26th at the Busboys and Poets at 14th and V, April 4th in Hyattsville, Maryland, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern each day, $10 RSVP, and you can check it out at popularresistance.org. Kymone, you are one of my favorite people to talk to in general, but especially when it comes to issues like this that are hard-hitting, because you're not afraid to speak truth to power. Is that what people can expect to see in the show? Absolutely.
A new point of view. For instance, let's take the Mike Brown case. We're all familiar with it, but we've only seen it through the lens of a particular six corporation's view. Mm-hmm. Let's just take the lens of race off of it and just use our common sense. Okay, you're a young guy. You stole some cigars or whatever, and everyone has stole something in their entire life unless you're Mother Teresa. And you're walking down the street, and a cop is not stopping you. He's just telling you, hey, get out the street and walk on the sidewalk. So you decide, based upon that, to attack the officer, to go for his gun, despite you going to college in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it sounds totally plausible.
You want to end it right here. Let's get it on right here, And so you get shot in the process of going after the cop's gun. So you take off running. Now, you start to run, and about 30 or 40 feet, while he's still shooting at you, you decide, I want to turn around and change my mind and charge the officer who is shooting at me in a football tackle position from 30 or 40 feet away.
Yeah.
That's only plausible if you're a believer of white supremacy institutions.
There are so many examples like that. That one was one, I think, that grabbed national attention because for so many of us, it was so cut and dried, where the narrative from the institutions just didn't seem plausible, and still don't.
Right. And let me explain something to all the listeners that would say, well, he was violent, he was big, he was scary, he got to look like a demon. His pecs are sagging, all that. He's dark-skinned, all that, all the stereotypes. Let me read this for them. This is an excerpt from the play. Martin Luther King Jr. wore suits, loved Jesus, and embraced nonviolence, spoke the Queen's English, had a top-notch education, said grace before he ate, and said his prayers before he went to sleep. However, none of that spared him white supremacy's wrath. And that is because white supremacy is neither rational nor moral. It cannot be calmed or reasoned with. It cannot be coddled or soothed. It doesn't play nice. There's no behavior that you can display that would temper its rage against your existence. It doesn't care about the red bottoms on your shoes or the length of your skirt or the hook of your hoodie or the sag of your pants. And while you believe that respectability is a way in which you can exercise control over the uncontrollable, your belief is a misnomer, a sideshow, a distraction, an illusion, cognitive dissonance. White supremacy means to extinguish your light simply because it shines, point blank in the story. And so, therefore, we have a world where college frat boys singing about hanging Negroes get police protection, and black people screaming Black Lives Matter get arrested.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw in Jackson, Mississippi, where my father, at one point in his life, his father was stationed there because the military said it was the most racist place he'd ever been in his entire life.
Where was this?
Jackson, Mississippi.
Jackson,
and we just saw an actual lynching, and they put the victim's mugshot up to identify him.
Is that right? And the words of Nina Simone, Mississippi, God damn.
Yeah, exactly. Kimon.
Real quick footnote. Ronald Reagan, their favorite president, actually launched his presidential campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And that's only known for one thing.
Racism.
2 dead Jews and a black guy in the backseat.
Tom talks about that all the time. Kymone Freeman, everybody. A black man in therapy.